So just in the last 30 minutes or so, the IDF spokesperson gave a statement in the Hebrew language. It was an unexpected message. There was no real previous announcement, but then it came just about 30 minutes ago. And the main headline coming out of there is that the operation in Gaza has basically begun. It is not very surprising, as we've heard reports in the last few days or so that there have been operations beginning in the southern part of Gaza City, neighborhoods such as Zaytun and Sabra, which are on the southern side of the Gaza City. And in the last 24 hours, another operation began in the neighborhood of Jabalia, which is on the northern outskirts of Gaza City. That is, the city itself, we have to understand, is bordered to the east. It almost makes it to the Israeli border on the east and the Mediterranean Sea on the west. That means that if you take over the southern and the northern part of the city, you basically have the city on siege. And that is essentially what has happened. And this was confirmed by the IDF spokesperson in his statement in the last 30 minutes or so. Also confirming the IDF spokesperson that some 60,000 warrants, what is known here in Israel as Warrant 8, meaning a call-up for reservists, have been handed out today. The first reservist will arrive to duty in early September, in about 2 weeks from now. That is right when the summer vacation is over, when the school year begins. But essentially, the operation, at least in its early stages, has already begun with a takeover of the southern and the northern outskirts of Gaza City. All this before the final plans have even been presented to the Prime Minister and the War Cabinet. That is expected to happen tomorrow evening.
And Jonathan, for those who are not immersed in the geography of the region or the politics, what is the objective? What is the significance of this military operation?
Israel believes that only through military pressure will it be able to achieve two goals. One, the complete destruction of Hamas, and two, the freeing of the hostages. There's a great controversy in Israel as to which comes first, destroying Hamas or bringing out the remaining 50 hostages. A great controversy there. But after the failure of the previous round of negotiations last month, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that Israel is no longer looking for partial agreements due to the understanding that Hamas is only fooling Israel, that is only buying time. And therefore, if there is no one agreement which will bring out all of the hostages together at once with demands that Israel can live with, then this is an agreement that Israel will not accept. And as long as that is not happening, then the goal, these two goals, whichever comes first, can only be achieved, according to Israeli officials, by force. And this is what Israel is now hoping for.
And from Israel's perspective, what would be a successful outcome from this operation?
Successful outcome, of course, will be Hamas perhaps understanding that the pressure should bring it down to its knees and basically free the hostages and have no more military capabilities. Judging by what we've seen this morning, by the way, with quite a brave operation by Hamas against an Israeli outpost, the abilities by Hamas are still there. Hamas can still act and still pose danger. A successful outcome, others are saying that this is perhaps Israel's way at putting more pressure on Hamas. Many analysts are saying that it is no surprise that in the past few weeks, Hamas is suddenly agreeing to a kind of an agreement, a deal, which it did not agree to a month before. This, according to these analysts, is only due to the threat of the Israeli conquest of Gaza. Maybe that is the whole point of Israel flexing its muscles and making these big threats in the last few days, perhaps putting pressure on Hamas to agree to even more concessions, some such concessions that Israel can live with, and maybe then head to a partial or a complete agreement. That is yet to be seen. Many people are saying that this is the real aim, the real logic behind the latest Israeli moves.
Jonathan, you talk about Israel's pressure on Hamas. What about pressure on Israel, and what of the international reaction to what's going on now?
It's huge and it's only growing. And we can assume that after these words coming from the IDF spokesperson, we will hear from more countries, and not only in the Arab world, but countries that are traditional Israeli allies, the United Kingdom, France, even Germany, which was perhaps the latest one, the last one to still back Israel, but still has a lot of criticism regarding the latest moves. We're seeing a lot of pressure, a lot of condemnation to the latest Israeli actions, and it will only grow. We're seeing other controversial Israeli actions in other arenas, the West Bank, for example, the controversial E1 settlement plan that is coming just as Israel is planning its conquest of Gaza. I think it's quite safe to say that Israel has never been in such a bad state diplomatically when we look even years and years backwards in previous cases. True, the American backing is still there, strong, but also within the United States, and not only the Democratic Party. There are voices saying that Israel has gone too far in the American public, in the American political spectrum. I think there's only a certain length as to how much Israel can count on the complete American support that for the moment is still there.
Do we know the nature of the military action? Is this ground force, air force, and do we have any idea of what kind of loss of civilian life might be entailed in this area?
So what Israel is hoping is, in order to make the civilian loss of life as small as possible, Israel is now one of the aims of the current plan, the fact that we're seeing actions within the area of Gaza City, in Zaytun, in Sabra, in other neighborhoods. The aim is to try and convince the local population to head south as soon as possible. Why so? Because Israel is hoping that when the main operation begins, as far as we're hearing in early September, to have the least amount of civilian population as possible. That is why, along with this military force, with this military campaign, we're seeing a major humanitarian campaign in the southern Gaza Strip, building of field hospitals, entry of tents, of shelters, in order to convince the civilian population to head south. Judging by past experience, we can be sure that many, actually, perhaps even the majority of the civilian population will head south. Is it going to be all of the civilian population? Probably not. Civilians will be left, and when civilians are left in an area of open battle, they will be hurt.
Is this the beginning of the end, or the beginning of something even more dreadful?
This is the Middle East, so you can never know. Israeli officials, the prime minister, is saying this is the beginning of the end. Once Israel conquers the entire Gaza Strip and the refugee camps of the central Gaza Strip, then, according to the prime minister, this would put the war to an end. It might be the case, but it's the same prime minister and the same officials that said more than a year ago that the complete conquest is just around the corner. It's been more than a year since, and we saw this morning that the complete victory is not even close. We saw that Hamas this morning, in a daring operation in Khan Yunis, Hamas is still there. Hamas still has abilities. Are we close to the end of the war? My guess is no.
Is Israel listening to international calls for moderation, or have we passed that now?
I think at the moment we're past that, as long as Israel has got the backing of the Trump administration, which for the moment we're seeing that Israel still has. It was only earlier this week, 2 days ago, when President Trump said that the hostages will only be released when Hamas is destroyed. That is essential backing for Israel. Just today, about an hour ago, 2 hours ago, Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying the United States will apply sanctions on ICC officials, ICC judges, due to some of the warrants that they put out against Israeli and American officials. So for the moment, the American backing is still there. How much patience does President Trump have? For the moment, he still has it. President Trump is a very unpredictable figure. Therefore, how long will Israel have his backing? Very big question.
Does the Netanyahu government and its military advisors have the backing of the Israeli people for this operation, do you believe?
The Israeli people are very divisive on practically everything, especially on this issue. And why so? It was exactly a year ago, at the end of August and early September, where in the space of a week, 12 bodies of hostages were found in Gaza. All 12 of them were taken to Gaza alive and were killed due to Israeli military action. Therefore, many families are saying that the military action is not only is quite the opposite from saving the hostages. It's killing the hostages. And many hostage families and supporters are saying that. On the other side, I think that would be a majority. There's a minority, but a substantial minority, which actually believes what the government is saying, that Israel has tried everything, and the only way now to bring out the hostages and clearly to destroy Hamas is through a military campaign, and that is what Israel should be heading for.
Jonathan, thank you for that. Our correspondent Jonathan Regev in Tel Aviv with that breaking news of Israel beginning its military operation to take over Gaza City.